I'm gonna go over every single new grass-type Pokemon released in Mythical Island for Pokemon Pocket. We're gonna talk about how the grass type's meta has completely changed, which Pokemon are good, which are bad, which we'll be building a deck out of, and how the serperior celebi combo has just completely shattered the meta and is the most unhealthy thing I have ever seen in this game. Let's get started. We need to begin by talking about Serperior, but of course we'll start with its pre-evolved forms. Snivy is the basic Pokemon that will evolve to eventually become Serperior. There's not a lot to talk about here. It is tanky. You can put this thing on your front line and sacrifice it to build up Celebi for a few turns, so that makes it pretty good. That alone makes it pretty good. If we take a look at its evolved form, Servine, we don't really get much of a difference. 2 energy, 10 extra damage, 10 extra health. Obviously, this is not going to be something you want in your active slot. By the time you evolve this thing into Servine, you kind of want to switch it out, put something else to tank in your active slot. The whole Serperior line really isn't meant to fight. It's meant to support you from your bench. When we can finally evolve this thing into Serperior, we get its Jungle Totem ability, and this is the defining new trait of every Grass-type deck you're going to see from now until the end of time. Each Leaf Energy attached to your Leaf Pokemon provides 2 Leaf Energy. What? It basically doubles all of your Leaf Energy. So if you have been powering up the previous forms, those 2 Leaf Energy now count as 4, and you can use Solar Beam for 2 Energy. Now, obviously Serperior itself is pretty crappy. 110 health for a Stage 2 Pokemon? That's really low. 70 damage for a 4, well, realistically 2, energy attack? Not great, and 2 retreat cost. But Serperior itself is supposed to be bad. This thing is a support Pokemon. You put it on your bench, and all of your energy is doubled now. This thing is better than Gardevoir for the Psychic types. This thing is better than Vaporeon for the Water types. It could arguably be better than Misty. This thing is insane, and you're going to see why when we start covering the rest of the Leaf types. But for now, Serperior is going to be a must-pick in every Grass-type deck until we get something better someday. Shifting over to Morlul, Morlul is going to be an optional card that you can choose to add to a Grass-type deck of any kind. I really like the Morlul line. It's a basic Pokemon with not much to talk about. It's not broken, it's not unbalanced, it's not weak, it's not strong, and it evolves into Shiinotic, who is again, another very well-balanced Pokemon. 90 health for Stage 1 is pretty good, 50 damage for 2 energy is pretty good, and it can put the active Pokemon asleep. If you're playing with a Serperior deck, which you probably should be, you can even activate this for 1 energy, which is amazing. A 1 energy sleep for 50 damage is like just really, really good. But even if you're not playing with Serperior, this thing is pretty nice to add into any grass deck. I like it, but we might not end up using it just because there's some more broken stuff we're going to get into. The new Execute is something I want to talk a lot about, just because I don't like it at all. The new Execute, I think, was a big mistake. Its move, Growth Spurt, gives you an extra Leaf Energy for your energy zone. So, you put a Leaf Energy on this, you use Growth Spurt, now you have 2 energy. And the idea is it's kind of like, like a Melton, like you're accruing energy, but there's a massive problem with this. The previous Eggsecute card that was released in Genetic Apex only needs 1 energy, so there's no reason to have 2 energy if you're going to use the previous Eggsecute. This is also true for the previous Eggsecute EX. Remember, these are from the previous booster packs, not Mythical Island. They only need 1 energy, and Eggsecute EX was one of the best grass cards that we had so far. So this new Execute, it just doesn't really help existing Pokemon. Its only value is to evolve it into the new Eggsecute that we also get in Mythical Island, so let's take a look at that. The new Eggsecute does 80 damage for 4 energy. The idea is that you use the new Execute to power up lots of energy. You Growth Spurt twice, now you have 4 energy, then you can evolve into Execute on your next turn. But this is actually an awful idea when you think about it. Execute only has 50 health. This thing is not going to survive in your active slot for 2 turns while you repeatedly use Growth Spurt. It's gonna die. Additionally, the new Executor needing 4 energy is so incredibly awkward. I mean, if you end up having to evolve this thing on your bench, there's no way you're going to be able to put 4 energy on it. It's completely dependent on serperior. You will never be running this outside of a serperior deck. This attack does 20 more damage for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. Let's think about that for a minute. You're doing 80 damage. You get 20 more damage for each energy attached to your active Pokemon. Who on earth is putting 4 energy on a benched Pokemon while your opponent has some kind of crazy Charizard or something on their active slot? You don't have enough time for that. The only way this card makes any sense whatsoever is with a Serperior deck. The one good thing it has going for it is it's sort of a counter to the new Celebi EX. It's very clunky, 3 retreat cost, it's awkward to use, execute is weak. I feel like it's gonna lose people sets in tournaments. Like, it'll have its really awesome moments, but it's also a little inconsistent. I don't know. But let's take a look at some other cards, and that'll kind of define, whether this is good or bad. Dhelmise. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This is a great card. Even if Serperior did not exist, and obviously this was made to work with Serperior, even if it didn't exist, this would be an amazing card. It's a 100 health basic Pokemon. That is so good! It only needs 1 energy to attack for 20 damage, which is perfectly reasonable. You can use this thing instead of Kangaskhan, for example. Its retreat cost is lower than Kangaskhan's, and it has the extra ability that if you somehow get 4 leaf energy attached, it now does 90 damage. Sure, 90 damage for 4 energy is awful, but that's fine, because this is a good Pokemon without that effect. That effect is just like throwing a little bit of extra magic on there, just a little extra who's-a-whatsits, for those combos. And when you have this active with Serperior, all of a sudden it does 90 damage for 2 energy as a basic Pokemon with 100 health. That's crazy. This is such a good card with or without Serperior. I would use it with Serperior, and we're definitely going to include this in the deck that we're going to build at the end of the video. Finally, Celebi EX is the last card that we need to talk about for the new grass cards released in Mythical Island before we start building our new grass deck and talking about the change to the meta. Celebi EX is the most broken card to ever exist. This thing is more powerful than Mewtwo. I'm not kidding about that. This thing is more powerful than Mewtwo. But that's largely thanks to the power of Serperior. On the face of it, Celebi EX would just be a regular Pokemon. Nothing too fancy. Flip a coin, for each energy attached, it does 50 damage for every heads. That basically means that you do an average of 25 damage for every energy attached, which is not that much. I mean, that's pretty average, actually. With 2 energy attached, you'd be doing an average of 50 damage. I mean, let's compare it to Zapdos EX to give you an idea of how balanced Celebi EX would be if not for Serperior. Zapdos EX has a 3 energy attack that will do 50 damage for each heads, just like Celebi. However, Zapdos will always flip 4 coins, no matter what. For Celebi to do the same thing, it would need 4 energy, 1 more energy than Zapdos. This is very reasonable because Celebi can start using this attack at 2 energy, whereas Zapdos can only start using its most powerful attack at 3 energy. They both have the same health, they're both EX Pokemon, and they have the same retreat cost. This would make Celebi EX perfectly balanced compared to Zapdos EX, although we should consider that Zapdos EX is one of the best cards currently, but still, Celebi EX is no better or no worse. I would argue that Celebi EX is actually a little bit better than Zapdos EX because it can power up to infinity. You can put this on your bench and keep adding energy, something that Zapdos EX cannot do, but overall it's reasonably balanced compared to Zapdos EX. However, we throw all of this math out the window when Serperior is on your bench. Now, Celebi can do the exact same thing as Zapdos EX for 2 energy. Celebi can do what Zapdos can do at 3 energy for just 2 energy. That is ridiculous. And we also have to account for the fact that now, if Celebi has 4 energy, it can make 2 Zapdos EX ultimate attacks, 2 Thundering Hurricanes, in 1 single attack. What the heck? 1 more energy than Zapdos should not cause you to double Zapdos. That is ridiculous. Let's compare this thing to Mewtwo EX now. Compared to Mewtwo EX, they're almost the same card. Mewtwo has a little more health, but a higher retreat cost, which is fair. Powerful Bloom at 2 energy will deal an average of 50 damage, which is exactly what Mewtwo deals at 2 energy. Though Celebi can hit for 100, it can also miss entirely. When they both have 4 energy, Mewtwo can deal 150 damage, but has to lose 2 energy. Celebi will be dealing an average of 100 damage, which is less, but doesn't have to lose any energy. Additionally, Celebi can theoretically hit for 200 damage, but Mewtwo can also one-shot it first and more consistently. So for this reason, it seems like Mewtwo is just a little bit better than Celebi EX, but there are a lot of trade-offs, including the fact that Celebi can power up to infinity and Mewtwo can't really do that. But Mewtwo EX is almost always run with Gardevoir to get its extra energies more quickly. Celebi will be run with Serperior. This changes things a little bit. When both of these cards are properly supported, they can both get to 4 energy in only 2 turns. So far, the 2 cards are even, but the fact that they can do this in 2 turns is a little bit misleading. Celebi can get to 4 energy in just 2 turns on the bench. Mewtwo EX cannot do that. For Mewtwo EX to be supported by Gardevoir, Mewtwo EX has to be in the active slot, meaning it is at risk of being KO'd, whereas Celebi can get to 4 energy, theoretically from a Serperior that is also on the bench. While Celebi's on the bench, they're completely safe, meaning that you will be able to switch Celebi into Mewtwo and possibly kill it, while it will be much harder to do it the other way around. I will say, though, that there is a counter to Celebi EX, and this is something that we're going to talk about in the meta section of this video. But for right now, I think it should be very clear that Celebi EX is one of the most powerful cards in the game, if not the most broken card in the game, when combined with Serperior. Okay, so before we build our deck, let's quickly talk about how the meta has changed for the plant typing. I'm going to cover the other types more in other videos. You can check them out if you want to learn how those other types have been affected by Mythical Island, but just really quick, let me summarize. The fire typing has become more powerful with better Blaine cards like the new Rapidash. These Blaine decks could become a big threat for Celebi decks, as they focus on doing fast fire damage, which is super effective against the grass typing. However, Charizard EX is actually zoned a little bit in the new meta by the new Mew. Charizard EX is the card that has been winning tournaments. Not Blaine decks, Charizard decks. Yeah, Blaine's won a few, but it's really Charizard that has been winning tournaments at top level play. For this reason, if you're in a tournament, you're more likely to go up against a Charizard deck if you're trying to win first place. Charizard has been weakened in Mythical Island due to the existence of Mew, which has the ability to use Crimson Storm against Charizard, which is just hilarious. For this reason, we might be seeing fewer Charizard decks, and as a result, fire weaker overall. I do anticipate that people will start running more Blaine decks in tournaments just to counter the Celebis, but those were never the best fire deck. I think that Grass has actually gotten a little bit stronger due to poor Charizard getting a little weaker. Water-type decks were one of the best types of decks in top-level tournaments, and they're probably still going to be. Vaporeon makes them a little better, but it's not as good as Serperior. And if anything, I think it can kind of be a trap for people, because the previous Starmie EX decks were just so gosh darn good, I don't even know if you need a Vaporeon added in. So ultimately, I can see people still playing water-type decks, and so Grass will still be good as a counter. Electric got some fun new options, but nothing entirely game-breaking. I do think the Electric type is still going to be one of the best decks, but Celebi and Serperior can defeat Pikachu EX decks. They can defeat the best decks in the game, and so I think that Grass is completely viable against the Electric type. Finally, it's really obvious that Mythical Island has boosted the Psychic type a little bit, and it was already one of the top types alongside Electric decks. That being said, Mew EX is weird right now. At the time of this video, genome hacking can somehow steal Serperior's ability when attacking Celebi. I don't know if that's a bug. I don't know if they're going to fix or change that. I don't know if it's intentional. But at the time of this video, MuEX can hit Celebi using Serperior's power from the Celebi, which is crazy. It allows MuEX to one-shot Celebi with its own attack, whereas that would not be very likely had that not been the case. So right now, I would say that Psychic decks are a big threat to Celebi just because of this interaction. But pay attention to the patch notes, because if that ever changes, then all of a sudden I think Grass will be wiping the floor with Psychic. But for right now, watch out for Mew. We're going to build a new Grass deck, one of the new Grass decks that's really good. I want to start by adding in Snivy, Servine, and Serperior, because these cards are just really amazing. If you want, you can mess with these numbers a little bit, maybe just put in one Serperior. I like to use two, but that's just my personal preference. We're going to, of course, add two Celebi EXs, and you definitely want two of these, especially if you draw one in the beginning and it ends up going down. You'll really want a second one on your back line. For just general tanks, I kind of want to add some dhelmise here. I already talked a lot about how good this is, and it combos so well with Serperior, it's just insane. Now, in terms of what kind of cards we're going to add here, I think adding blue is really good. This can be a lifesaver for your Celebi, for example. We're also going to want some Sabrina cards. Obviously, these are great with Celebi, you know, you can do a ton of damage, but occasionally you'll want to hit something on the back line. You don't really need Leaf because almost none of your Pokemon will have 2 retreat cost. Everything just has kind of 1 retreat cost. So what we'll do is we'll add some X speeds instead, and that'll help your Pokemon retreat, giving you even more energy efficiency. From here, we add the obligatory Pokeballs and Professor Oak cards, leaving us with a classic 10-10 split. Now, if you like to add more Pokemon to your deck and you need to replace something, just a little bit of a more Pokemon-heavy version of this would look like real quick. So we could have something like this, where I've added into Eggsecute and an Executor, you know, but this isn't like the perfect deck. These are just some things to play around with, depending on your style. You could also replace this with morlul and shiinotic, for example. But the core of this is Celebi, dhelmise, and the Serperior line. That's what's going to win you games, even if you don't add in any additional basic Pokemon. You're probably going to see this deck dominate the random queue. If you like this video, check out my other type coverage videos for Mythical Island in Pokemon Pocket. Consider subscribing, and I'll catch you later.